Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 476, Your Victory Over Amorality, Part 2, How Spiritual Values Reverse the Damage of Amorality Within Your Heart. The podcast objectives are analyze the role of distractions in amorality, analyze the role righteousness plays in your victory over amorality, and analyze your battles with amorality. Where there is no focus. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 330 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we began our analysis revealing how spiritual values defeat the spirit of amorality. And we will conclude our analyses in this podcast. Now, we left off by analyzing how spiritual values reinforce the degrees of compliance and conformance. As you know, these degrees of obedience play a large part in establishing the boundaries of the Father's will for your life. This is, no doubt, contrary to the counterwork of amorality, for amorality is designed to eradicate the boundaries of the Father's will. It does this first and foremost by manipulation, i.e., the first phase in the progression of prejudice and contempt. Now, the question we should chiefly entertain is this: how does amorality manipulate the boundaries of the Father's will? The answer is sure. It does this by employing a wide range of distractions. And if it isn't obvious, these distractions are designed to prevent you from remaining focused on the Father's will. And this, my friends, is how amorality manipulates the boundaries of the Father's will. It is by causing you to change or lose your perspective of the Father's will due to your lack of focus on the Father's will. You must remember, we are at all times increasing towards the point of our focus. Not only this, but there is a powerful connection between your focus and your perspective. Consider this: your focus helps shape your perspective. Ergo, where there is no focus, there can be no perspective. Not only this, but where there is no focus, there is great opportunity for amorality to manipulate the boundaries of the Father's will. And because you were not focused, you didn't even notice. The perspective of righteousness. Now, these things being what they surely are, the question of the hour is, how do we unlock the power of focus to keep every matter in the right perspective? The answer is sure, and we have analyzed it in prior podcasts. To wit, your focus must be on the kingdom of Elohim and his righteousness. We know this because, again, we are at all times increasing towards the point of our focus. Ergo, if you are focused on the kingdom of Elohim and his righteousness, you will keep things in the right perspective, i.e., the perspective of righteousness. Not only this, but you will increase towards the pinnacle of his righteousness, which is perfection. And in the process, you will eliminate every degree of lawlessness standing in your way. And that includes amorality. Now, the manner in which values eliminate amorality is both brilliant and fascinating, and it will not be as difficult as you might have imagined. Here is why. By unlocking the power of virtue, you have already defeated the invading army of contempt, and you have eliminated every stronghold of contempt from your heart. Ergo, the landscape of your heart during your war with prejudice will be vastly different than the environment we analyzed at the beginning of your war with contempt. You can see this by analyzing the diagram to the right. To wit, there are no traces of contempt in your heart, and yet all the safeguards of virtue are in their rightful place. Now, most importantly, the first of the 7 great enemies you will face in your quest has been eliminated. Look here. The Ruach of self has been replaced with a renewed character. And this renewed character is fashioned after the Ruach of Elohim. This is why you, at this juncture, will be able to walk in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. It is because your character, more than anything, determines your actions. Ergo, it is impossible to walk in the path of righteousness apart from a righteous character. And this, my friends, is the role that righteousness plays in your victory over amorality. Remember, righteousness is the primary attribute of the way of holiness, and thus the following is true. Every degree of holiness that leads to righteousness is designed to position us to unlock the power of righteousness. Likewise, every degree of holiness that follows righteousness is designed to position us to demonstrate the power of righteousness in everything we say and in everything we do. Now, as you have learned, the first power you unlock after you unlock the power of virtue and righteousness is spiritual values. This is a key matter, which brings us to our first revelation in this lesson. The first step you take in the path of righteousness is designed to unlock the power of spiritual values. For if we are not men and women of spiritual values, we will never succeed in walking in the path of righteousness. Never. Remember, your spiritual values empower you to stay in the way of holiness by reinforcing your commitments to compliance and conformance. And as righteousness is the primary application of conformance, your spiritual values, more than anything, will also reinforce your commitment to righteousness. And this is a mystery we will analyze in future podcasts. For where there is no righteousness, there can be no spiritual values. And where there are no spiritual values, there can be no righteousness. Your battles with amorality. Now that we have hardened the immense value of your spiritual values, we should progress this discussion to analyze your battles with amorality and how you will surely gain the victory. Let's get started. Now, if you recall, amorality corrupts the sensory region in your physical heart. You can see this by observing the diagram below. In doing so, Amorality prevents the physical data points of an informed thought from progressing into your heart, data points that follow the principles of logic. Now, this counter operation allows the spirit of amorality to protect the organized chaos in your physical heart. This will ensure that the intentions generated in your inner heart reflect the Ruach of self as opposed to the Ruach of Elohim. But alas, self is no longer a factor. You defeated this villain when you unlocked the power of honesty. And although the Ruach of self was not completely discarded from your heart at that time, you, my friend, succeeded in putting him on the run. In doing so, you defeated the unnatural version of your character that was hijacked by the Ruach of self, and you instituted a renewed character. Here lies the inflection and the key to defeating amorality. Consider this. Amorality and all the degrees of prejudice are not only designed to receive their marching orders from the Ruach of self, but they are also connected to each other. To wit, they are likened unto a spiritual network of destruction, a chain of death. And if any link in the chain is broken, it loses its connection to the source. And without the source, it has no power. It retains no strength. Now, this shouldn't be too hard to understand. For progressive spiritualism is designed in the same manner, vis-a-vis the spirit of Elohim is the source of our strength. And if we become disconnected from him, we will lose our power and we will not succeed in spiritual warfare. Here again, the same rule applies to our enemies, none of whom are physical in nature. Quite the contrary, they are spiritual in nature, and their power is not within and of themselves. Rather, it derives from a spiritual source. Therefore, once you begin the process of eliminating the Ruach of self from your heart, the spiritual virus of amorality will not only lose his commanding officer, but he will also lose the power source that allowed him to rule over the sensory region of your physical mind. For that reason, your battles with amorality will at some point become simple. For without a power source to renew his strength, amorality will only become weaker. And this will allow you to replace him with spiritual values that will ensure the standards of compliance are situated at the gateway into your physical heart. You can see this by observing the diagram below. To wit, the sensory region of your left complex has been renewed by values. And per the mystery we shared in the most recent podcast, this reinforces righteousness, which is governing your thought alignment centers. Now, here is the final word. The primary key to winning a fight is your commitment to doing what you know is right. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, it doesn't matter what battle you are fighting with lawlessness. Righteousness will always be at the center of your strategy and the primary key to your success. And this is especially the case for spiritual values. Remember, the first step you take in the path of righteousness is designed to unlock the power of spiritual values. In effect, Yahuwah is telling us that we will never consistently do what we know is right if we do not value righteousness above everything else in our lives. And this, my friends, is the primary key to your victory over amorality and adding security to all your spiritual boundaries. Heretofore, I recommend take that first step onto the path of righteousness and stay in between the lines. All you have to do is harness the power of spiritual values, and you, my friend, will do just fine. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today. And as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction. And if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. Today, I want you to meditate on the word I have shared. Specifically, I want you to meditate on the enemy's playbook and how his desire is to cause you to lose your focus so he can manipulate your boundaries. In doing so, I want you to ask the Father to help you to stay focused on his will. I want you to ensure your meditations on his will are consistent and that you are focused and rising above every distraction. Even if you have to pray for 3 to 5 hours every day, do it. And remember, everlasting life is at stake. My dear friend, the seal of Elohim is at stake. And if you need any help in this endeavor, please reach out to a qualified spiritual advisor. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 476, Your Victory Over Immorality, Part 2. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 477, An Intro to Reverence. I will post this podcast on Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch. Continue to pray. Continue in fasting. And most of all, continue to be focused. For the end is coming. The end is near.